Before we get started, a couple quick announcements. One is, well, if you're here listening to today's Tech Talk, whether you're here live or you're watching this recording afterwards on YouTube, here is our upcoming schedule of additional Tech Talks. Again, Tech Talks are maybe 15 to 20 minutes, a quick overview of some technology that we offer, and then our upcoming user groups as well, which tend to be an hour, hour and a half, possibly a little bit longer. It's more of a deep dive on the use of a particular technology, one particular application, and you're able to interact with other customers of ours to talk about the challenges, the solutions, how they've been using this technology as well. In addition to the live webinars and YouTube, also, I always have to mention TRC Talks, our podcast. That started off as my quarantine project along with Wayne Welk, and we have loved doing that. There's some great content on there, and that's something that we're going to keep on coming for the long term. That's a project that Reynolds will certainly keep publishing. So if you want a little bit more of a deep dive on a particular topic, we find experts, whether in Reynolds, in Rockwell, or elsewhere, and interview them there. Really are able to dig into some good topics there. Other events coming up, well, Rock Live has already happened. That was a few weeks back. That was live online, but all of those sessions are recorded and are now available on demand. Again, a great treasure trove there of some technical conversations, some deep dives into technology, and then the return of in-person events. We have Automation Fair this year in November, and we are lucky enough to have it in our backyard down in Houston. So signups are not live for Automation Fair yet, but keep your ears open, stay in touch with your Reynolds account manager, and they will let you know as that kicks off, which should be pretty shortly. So today's guest panelist is me, Brad Freeman. I am the industrial services specialist in our North Texas area. So quick side note there, if you are down on the Gulf Coast of Texas, or if you are in Louisiana, I have counterparts with Reynolds in both of those areas. So please feel free to reach out to me and I will make sure to get you in touch with the correct person there. So today's topic is ScanESC, which is a lockout tagout program management software. So today we're talking about safety. Now, safety gets to be a very complex topic. So I really have two goals for today. One, I'm going to review this as simply as possible. I'm going to hit the highlights. I'm going to try to make this a easy conversation where we can look at possible applications of this. And for the portions of this where this topic really can't be broken down simply, well, you have access to myself, to my counterparts in other areas that Reynolds covers, and we are able to put you directly in touch with the experts at Rockwell and ScanESC as well, so that we could really start to deep dive on your specific applications, on what the lockout tagout program looks like at your facility, etc. Today's agenda, we're going to talk about some of the common challenges that we see around compliance when it comes to lockout tagout. Then we'll talk about ScanESC, what the solution looks like, how it addresses those challenges, a few business outcomes beyond compliance and safety, then a quick summary at the end. So we kick things off talking about compliance, but before we do that, I want to tell a quick story. I did this job in Virginia for several years before moving here to Texas. And I had a customer there who had just taken over as maintenance manager of this facility. And I met with him and he gave me a tour of the building. And it was a pretty rough tour. He and I were identifying some lockout tagout issues, some arc flash safety issues, some machine guarding issues. It was a very unsafe facility that he had inherited, and he was trying to get his head around the problems and figure out what direction he needed to go, what experts he needed to bring in, how does he implement lockout, tagout, how does he implement arc flash safety. There was a lot of different conversations happening at once. But there's one particular part of a conversation I had with him that's always stuck with me. And that was, it was a very intense individual. And he looked me directly in the face and he said, my goal is to send my employees home safe every night. Keeping my people safe is the top priority. Secondary to that is keeping the facility and the team and the practices in compliance. And I've never had a conversation where it came together quite so well there. The difference between safety and compliance. Regulations are put in place to encourage us to keep ourselves safe and to keep our teammates safe. But safety isn't just hitting the check boxes on a list of items on a regulation. Safety can be much more than that. So while we are talking about compliance today, I want to make sure that we are acknowledging the fact that this needs to be in service of keeping employees safe and not just a regulatory thing that we have to do and then we don't worry about it again. So that being said, let's look at some of the more common compliance requirements that OSHA has around lockout tagout specifically. The first item is periodic inspection. Machines that have lockout tagout procedures designed for them need to be periodically inspected to make sure that nothing has changed on the machine. If something has changed, then the procedure needs to be updated as well. Secondly, the energy control procedure, the lockout tagout procedure, also needs to be periodically inspected to make sure that the requirements of the OSHA standard 1910.147C6I are being followed. Thirdly, it is the company's responsibility to track these periodic inspections so that we can show when they happened, who is involved, how, again, we're looking at how recently, is it within the 12-month time frame that it's required, and then when are these procedures being used? When was the last time that this machine was locked out? Those three items right there lead us into a lot of things that sound pretty simple, but logistically can be difficult to implement. So some of the most common problems that we see is failure to properly document employees and the audit. So the procedures might be audited annually, but they're not properly documented, which from a regulatory and compliance perspective puts the company at risk and has its liability. Secondly is a failure to even audit to begin with. So much less tracking and proving that the audit occurred. If the audit isn't occurring, then the tracking of it becomes secondary because, again, we're looking at a safety issue for our employees. Third is authorized employees are not being audited or trained correctly. There are requirements around that as well. And then the fourth, this is really the most common one, the one that's leading to all these other things, is we consistently underestimate the time and the staff capacity that is needed to follow compliance regulations. With those issues in mind, those compliance risks that, again, we see very commonly, and I'm sure that those customers who are listening and are identifying with at least one of them, I'll now overview ScanESC. So ScanESC is a software platform offered by Rockwell, offered by Reynolds, that helps you manage a lockout tagout program. It is fully digital to begin with. So it's going to be secured in the cloud, backed up in the cloud. If you lose a notebook, if you lose paper records, you're not at risk of having this entire program disappear. You've got secure data. That's a great step to begin with. You can access it on just about anything you're accessing this webinar on. You need an iOS, an Android, or a Windows device. There is not a particular requirement not a significant software that's running that's requiring higher processing power. We are able to offer iPads in conjunction with this software, or you can simply have employees use their existing devices, their personal smartphones, work laptops, if that's something that's used within the facility. And it gives you access anywhere. So as things are shifting to a work from home, especially on the business side, the last year plus now, a lot of us have been shifting towards, we're doing a live webinar. This webinar grew out of an in-person product update that is now being offered online so that any of our customers can see it. That's the same mentality here. No matter where you are going to be able to access the current state of all procedures, current utilization of all procedures, current state of your equipment, whether it's locked out or not. QR codes can be provided as well. So QR codes are going to be mounted on each machine, and that lets your employees simply walk up with a digital device, scan the QR code, and they will have all documentation for your Lockout Tagout program there. They can have walkthrough instructions, Word documents, PDFs, PowerPoints, Excel, spreadsheets, however it is you have documented your Lockout Tagout program, it can be uploaded to this and accessed there. Additionally, if we're looking in the illustration on the side of the PowerPoint here, you can also print out a step-by-step instruction list and laminate it, place it there. That's something that we are able to do as well. So whether we want the hard copy or the digital copy, ScanESC can provide that. In addition to that point of use access, there's also going to be a dashboard. So this is more of a supervisory viewpoint here, but it lets you look at all of your machines, all of your audits, and see what's the history. When was this last used? What's the current status? Is this locked? Is this unlocked? Who locked it? Who unlocked it? When was it locked? This becomes very critical from a compliance perspective. If there is an incident, if there is an injury, you are able to see when this was used last, who unlocked it, was it properly unlocked, was it documented, etc. As well as using this to manage the audit process. Again, your procedures need to be audited every 12 months. This lets you see what is coming up for audit, what's past due on the audits and needs to be addressed more urgently, etc. Again, like I said, however you are managing your Lockout Tagout program, Word document, PowerPoint, PDF, Excel spreadsheet, all of these files can be uploaded so that as your person who's doing this work is coming up at the point of use, they can scan a QR code or they can scroll through this software and select the machine. It's going to give them the full list of documentation that's applicable to the spot that they are standing at. This software is sold on a subscription basis. It is honestly a very modest fee. And then there is a setup fee that is, I will say, even more modest. This is not a large dollar investment, and it is scoped per facility. I apologize, per facility. Again, it's available on all iOS devices, all Android devices, all Windows devices. All very common platforms really should be the ones that most of you are either personal devices that, if you're using your personal smartphones, if you're using a engineering or maintenance laptop, or if you are using a desktop within the business environment so you can check on the status of this program. Either way, simple access. On the business side of things, an 85% audit time reduction is standard. Compared to pen and paper, to a homegrown Excel spreadsheet tracking of audits, having a software that is automatically sorting this for you, automatically letting you know what machines, what procedures need to be audited, when they need to be audited, how soon, which ones are past due, the downtime and the efficiency of the audit process are significant. You're able to check in on these audits in real time. So you're able to see when someone is at a machine. You can set it up to get notifications so that you're aware of the progress that's happening. Huge efficiency bonuses there. Something I want to note, I've said a few times that this software works through the cloud. So all of these files are in the cloud. When your maintenance or auditing employee is out in the field and is accessing this data, if you don't have internet at this machine, if you don't have it in your facility, if for cybersecurity concerns you have, banned Wi-Fi, you don't have mobile phones, that's not a problem. These devices can work entirely offline, have all the necessary files downloaded. When you return to the business environment and connect it to Wi-Fi, it will then upload a report of all of the work that was done. When was a lockout started? When was it completed? On the audit side, when was it audited? Date and time stamp, not of when the data is being uploaded to the internet, but when it actually occurred. So again, if there is not adequate internet access in the production environment, that does not cancel this viability. So again, ScanESC is a lockout tagout program management software. Remaining safe and remaining compliant, it's just about impossible for large companies when you have multiple locations or even a single location, but a high number of machines. Making sure that this is adequately managed, making sure that you are not at regulatory risk, and more importantly, your employees are not unsafe. It's a very difficult task. This software is specifically designed to meet that. Now, one last note. We've been talking about lockout tagout programs through this entire webinar, but not about how do you create that in the first place. That was intentional because that's a conversation that goes far beyond a 15-minute webinar here where I'm speaking in a one-way sort of environment. If you are looking at creating a lockout tagout program, if you have one and are dissatisfied with it, feel that it's not meeting regulatory compliance, it's not keeping your employees safe, I encourage you to reach out to your Reynolds account manager, to myself directly. Again, if you're in a different area, I can put you in touch with the right people locally. The experts at ScanESC and at Rockwell and at Reynolds are available to do facility audits, to analyze the current state and recommend a future state of a lockout tagout program. We do have safety engineers who can create lockout tagout procedures for you. Please reach out to us. That's something that we absolutely have the capability of doing. Again, it's not something we've touched on much today, but I wanted to be sure to bring it up. Thank you all for listening today. I will pause for a moment here and see if we have any questions that came up within the chat. Brian, did you see anything coming up in the chat?
I didn't see anything.
All right.
We're good.
Well, thank you all, and I hope you all have an excellent day.